Let's start off with Donald J. Trump. Wow, he's had so many interesting comments recently. It's hard to know which ones to pick, but we're going to start with his thoughts on Chuck Schumer. Yes, Chuck Schumer, career supporter of the Israeli government, such a supporter that even though he recently said that Benjamin Netanyahu should no longer be prime minister, he still invited him to speak to Congress and gave him a welcome.
Well, also, can I just add one thing about that statement from Schumer? Of course, he doesn't want him to be prime minister because he thinks he's not helpful to Israel, has nothing to do with Palestinians, and he wants him to step down after the war winds down.
Well, according to Trump, Chuck Schumer is so insufficiently pro-Israel that he's become, in Trump's words, a Palestinian.
Well in line, Chuck Schumer refused to shake the Israeli prime minister's hand. Chuck Schumer has become a Palestinian. Yes, can you believe it? He's become a proud member of Hamas. Nancy Pelosi likewise denounced the speech in shameful terms.
I think Trump's made a lot of bigoted comments over the course of his life, but I think the most bigoted, at least I've ever heard from him, someone could correct me if I'm wrong, is him now using Palestinian as a derogatory term, right? Like imagine him saying about like, I don't know, some other politician, like that they become like a Jew, right? I don't think that would be politically tenable for him, but he can go and call someone like Chuck Schumer a Palestinian derisively, and that's not a controversy for some reason. When it seems pretty bigoted to me to use an ethnic group as a derogatory term. And of course, then there's a critique that basically Chuck Schumer is somehow on the Palestinian side, or he's somehow insufficiently pro-Israel when he's like a huge tool of the Israel lobby and a massive supporter of Israel, which makes this comment all the more ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, his big resistance to Israel is not shaking Netanyahu's hand,
while still voting every time to fund Netanyahu's government,
right,
in committing mass murder inside Gaza. But yeah,
and still attending his speech, which others didn't do, in a kind of ineffective protest.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's look at another clip of Trump doing and saying something pretty interesting. Here we have Trump speaking on a radio interview with Sid and Friends, and let's hear what he had to say about Jews and Israel.
Any Jewish person that voted for her or him or whoever it's going to be, I assume it's going to be her, anybody that did that should have their head examined. If you love Israel or if you're Jewish, because a lot of Jewish people do not like Israel, and they happen to be in New York. You know that.
Yes.
But if you are Jewish, regardless of Israel, if you're Jewish, if you vote for a Democrat, you're a fool, an absolute fool. They have let Jewish people down since Obama at levels that nobody could believe possible. 15 years ago, the strongest lobby in all of Washington was Israel. It was by far the strongest. Nobody would say anything bad about Israel. Today, it's like nobody says anything good, except Republicans, by the way. Nobody says anything good about it. So it's a hell of a change. I assume you know exactly what I'm saying.
Oh, I know.
15 years ago, you couldn't say a bad thing.
No.
You'd be out of office.
Yeah.
And today, it's almost like, Schumer has become a Palestinian. Chuck Schumer is officially now a Palestinian.
It's funny, but it's true.
Okay, a couple things with that. One is he's saying if you're a Jew, you shouldn't vote for the Democrats. And he says if you like Israel, you shouldn't vote for the Democrats. But then he says even if you don't like Israel, because a lot of Jews don't like Israel, you shouldn't vote for Democrats. But then he goes on to say the way that Democrats are bad is only related to Israel. So why I'm giving him too much intellectual credit, as if he's ever kind of coherent or has an internal logic. But why would Jews who don't like Israel not like the Democrats? And of course, the irony is the Democrats are being supportive of Israel anyway. So he almost gets that Jews and Zionists aren't the same thing, but then he reconflates them. And he's complaining that the Israel lobby isn't strong enough, which is quite a stunning thing to say. Let's take a listen to what the host said about Kamala Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, and what kind of Jew he is.
It's sad. He is, and they tell me that this Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, Mr. President, is Jewish. He's Jewish like Bernie Sanders is Jewish. Are you kidding me? He's a crappy Jew.
Yeah.
He's a horrible Jew.
Horrible Jew, crappy Jew. He's a horrible Jew. And of course, Trump agrees with this assessment. You hear him saying, yeah. So I thought we could also watch a clip of Nina Turner reacting to this.
So just even listening to that entire conversation has me enraged. To use Palestinians as a racial slur. Palestinians matter just like Israelis matter. Both people are entitled to live a good life, and we got to find a way to make that happen. But for President Donald J. Trump to continue to saber rattle in that way, what has the Biden-Harris administration done that has been against Israel? They have not. It is our bombs that are bombing Palestinian babies over there in the Gazas. And then to intimate that the Biden-Harris administration has not done anything, they have funded time and time again. 40,000 Palestinians have been killed.
And I don't think anyone disregarded Palestinian lives. I'm an Arab American.
But I wonder, how much do you think that will ultimately matter for Kamala Harris?
I mean, I think the vice president, so far she has shown herself to want to continue what the administration that she is part of wants to do. Now, she has softened some of she has said, in other words, she is troubled about the suffering of Palestinians, but saying something and doing something about it is two different things.
I totally agree. But the problem is identifying who is the cause of the instability, of the war, of the violence. And there is only one cause. It's Hamas. And I do believe there are a number of people on the left in this country who are not rooting for Israel on this thing. They've got it in their mind that Israel is somehow the aggressor or the cause of this. It was Hamas who took the kidnappings. It was Hamas who did the raping. It was Hamas who did the murdering. And Israel has to be able to defend itself. And
a lot to break down there, but I'm always surprised that they let Nina Turner on CNN at all. But she makes a really important point, which is that Kamala Harris hasn't done anything remotely critical of Israel. She hasn't said she'll do anything remotely unsupportive of Israel. She just kind of pays lip service to Palestinians being human beings. And for people like that Republican strategist, Scott Jennings, that's too much. That's anti-Israel. But also notice how he said that Hamas is responsible for everything, for all the violence. And then he also even says that they're the ones doing the raping, which is an insane thing to say, because we know that not only do the Israelis frequently engage in sexual violence against Palestinians, but we even have seen that it's been so bad in one detention center that 9 Israeli soldiers were actually detained over this abuse.
Yeah, and then Israelis had a riot to basically free them because they insist on the right of Israeli soldiers to commit sexual assault. And also, it has to be said, he says that Hamas did the raping, as has been extensively documented now. There's no evidence for that at all on October 7th.
Right.
That to me seems like it's just another Israeli fabrication to justify its mass murder campaign in Gaza. But listen, really impressive what Nina Turner said there. I really, she's not just calling out Trump for being so skewed in his view of anti-Semitism in Israel. She's also calling out Democrats like Kamala Harris for continuing Joe Biden's policy of support for Israeli mass murder. And again, you can't have a serious discussion about this issue if you're not willing to acknowledge the longest running military occupation in the world. That's what Israel's carrying out. Scott Jennings wants to blame this on one day of militarism and atrocities by Palestinian militants on October 7th. But that's not where this started. It starts and ends with the occupation.
Right, it does, yeah. And we should also point out, Aaron, you just mentioned that people were rioting in defense of the soldiers who were detained over raping Palestinian prisoners. Also, Israeli lawmakers were literally defending this sexual violence and literally said it was legitimate.